Okay, this is the paragraph that is at the bottom of page 27 of our textbook, and I've typed it up because I'd like to tell you a few things about it. The main thing that I want to cover is, of course, coherence, which is the logical connection of all of the sentences together. Um, and but I also want to mention a few other things here as well because it's a great paragraph to do that. Okay, so first of all, I want to mention again. Look at the title. It's short. It's the main idea of the paragraph. Um, all the adjectives and nouns and adverbs. Well, there aren't any adverbs. There are nouns like consequences and fear. They're capitalized. Health is a noun, it's capitalized. The is capitalized because it's the first word in the title, but of is not, because remember, prepositions and conjunctions and articles like the are not capitalized if they don't come at the beginning of a title. And there's no verb. It's not a clause. There's no subject and verb. Usually there are verbs in titles. Sometimes there are, but usually there aren't. Okay, another thing I wanted to point out is it has in the supporting details, it has a quotation. Yay! Remember, that's one of the ways that we can create supporting details is through a quotation. Okay, now, with respect to pronouns and nouns, the book tells us about repeating the word fear. So it says, when worry escalates, the result is fear. Everyone has experienced it. And here's the pronoun that's referring to fear. A swimmer of only moderate skill might be afraid of swift waters. Okay, now this is important. Afraid of is a synonym of the word fear. It means basically the same thing. And the book talks about substituting key nouns on page 29. So this is an example of substituting the word fear with the term afraid of. Let's continue. A child might fear the dark. A hiker will probably feel it when hearing the distinctive warning of a rattlesnake. Well, it again is talking about fear. A jogger might experience it, talking about fear, when confronted with an angry dog. Now, something that I didn't put in your view here, but I can now, is this information which was at the bottom of page 27. It says, there is no fixed rule about how to repeat key nouns or when to use pronouns as a substitute. You should repeat a key noun instead of using a pronoun when the meaning is unclear. So if we keep reading up here and we keep seeing it and it and it, the reader might start to get a little lost in trying to figure out what is it talking about. And that's why this paragraph is a good example, because we should try to find a place to put fear again. So let's put it here. And I wanted to put it there because there's no need to put it after this with this it, because we already have fear in the sentence before it. And I don't want to put it here because this is a quotation. I can't change the words in a quotation. Remember, a quotation, well, let me back up just in case people are still a little lost. The quotation is when you have these quote marks and it's the exact words of someone else. So I can't change this to fear because it's the exact word that Norman Cousins said. Okay, so moving on, then it says it causes the heart to race. So we know it's fear. We've already used fear once here again. It causes the heart to race, the head to spin, the palms to sweat, the knees to buckle, and breathing to become labored. Its physical effects. So what I would do here, because we've got it and then we have it again, all meaning fear, is I would probably put fear here. And it's so it's possessive, so I have to make it possessive, meaning it, like mine, yours. Fear's physical effects are such that the human body can't withstand it indefinitely. Now, if you wanted, you could just do this, because remember, as we just saw down here, there's no fixed rule. So we could say its physical effects are such that the human body cannot withstand fear indefinitely. The key is that you use the word wisely. You're not constantly using it, and you're not constantly using fear. You want to mix it up, make it interesting. There's a saying in English, and that is that variety is the spice of life. That means that variety gives life interest, makes it life interesting. And the same thing with writing. If we're going to constantly use fear, if we're going to always use the word fear in this paragraph, it's going to get boring. And by the same token, the same thing, if we always use the word it to mean fear, it's also going to get boring. And if we're always using the pronoun it, people will get lost because they won't remember what it means. Okay, now if you turn the page to page 28 in the textbook, there's another paragraph, and that's entitled English. And I wanted to go through this one to talk more about the problems with pronoun usage, and also to bring up some other things. So again, we have a title English, very short. It's a noun. It is the main point here of this paragraph. Also, again, if you see here, the beginning of the paragraph is indented. That means I hit the tab key, T-A-B, tab key on the keyboard. Okay, English has almost become an international language. Except for Chinese, more people speak it, so that's referring to English, than any other language. Spanish is the official language of more countries in the world, but more countries have English as their official or unofficial second language. Now, originally, the book had, but more people have it. The reason why the writer of the book changed it to English is because it's going to get confusing, because we've got this word Spanish, so we have the language Spanish, and then it says it, so it's not quite clear what is it. Is it English or Spanish? So we changed it to English to make it very clear to the reader that we're talking about English and not Spanish. All right, let's continue. More than 70% of the world's mail is written in it. Okay, I think that's fine to keep it as it, because we know up here we have English, so that's referring to English. We could here say English is the primary language on the internet. In international business, it is used more than any other language, and it is the language of airline pilots and air traffic controllers over the world. I think it's okay to keep those two. Then it says, moreover, although French used to be the language of diplomacy, it has displaced it. Now, this is a great example of where the pronoun it has confused the reader. It is not clear what it means. Is it talking about French, or is it talking about English? So it here has displaced, means English has displaced it throughout the world. So now it's clear which is this it is talking about. Moreover, although French used to be the language of diplomacy, English has displaced it, and here it means French throughout the world. Therefore, and I would add English here, is a useful language to know. And the reason why I decided to do that is because we already have the it here. And it too many times is going to be confusing. Or not confusing, just not sound very good. Doesn't sound very, doesn't have the variety. So that is why I wanted you to see this paragraph. The other things I wanted to bring out in this paragraph that are important for us to know is this also talks about coordinating conjunctions, and that's where we have the comma and, which is on page 34 in our textbook. Also, it has a conjunctive adverb and comma, moreover, that's on page 33. And it has although, which is a subordinating conjunction, which is also on page 3. So I hope this was very helpful for you.